Hello there, you're watching Nightline with me, Norzi Patwanchi. These are the headlines. All schools to resume classes as scheduled, says Education Ministry. And Johor floods worsening with 1,780 people evacuated. All schools under the Education Ministry and also private education institutions registered with the Ministry will resume classes as scheduled this year. The Ministry said this includes education institutions in Conditional Movement Control Order (CMCO) areas. In a statement, the Ministry said the operation of all the educational institutions will have to strictly comply to the management and operation of school guidelines in the new normal, and also guidelines for the Institute of Teacher Education and Matriculation Colleges. The Education Ministry said it will monitor operations of the education institutions together with the Health Ministry and the National Security Council. This is to ensure health and safety aspects are prioritised and that there are no flouting of SOPs. It was announced in August 2020 that schools nationwide will resume classes on January 20th, 2021 due to COVID-19. Meanwhile, the National Union of Teaching Profession NUTP called on parents to abide by the government's decision to resume the schooling session as scheduled this month. This comes after some parents have raised concerns of students going back to school despite the high number of COVID-19 cases reported.
We understand the parents' concern, but let the Ministry of Education do their job. Let them take into account the data, the statistics, and the science that are available to them to make sure that everyone is safe. As citizens, we must abide by the government decision wholeheartedly in these trying times of the pandemic. As teachers, we are sticking to our core business, that is to provide the best holistic education to our students in a safe environment.
He added that parents that are concerned should keep themselves constantly updated for the latest announcements from the National Security Council. The school holidays are coming to an end and kids are going back to school in 2 weeks' time. Some parents are already out making preparations by buying school supplies, getting their children ready for school in the new normal.
Today is the day, it's the first day of school.
Despite COVID-19 cases still being reported in the high 4 digits daily, many parents are out shopping for school supplies physically. Many were seen observing physical distancing and wearing face masks. They were mindful of how much they spent, as many were tightening their belts this year due to the economic situation. As for their children, they were also excited about the prospect of finally returning to school after a long break.
Jadi kita beli pakaian tu ikut kemampuan kita lah. Maksudnya kita target dalam satu anak tu dalam satu pasang lah. Itu pasal sebab tahun lepas punya boleh pakai lagi lah. Kita pakai apa yang dah lah.
Seronok.
Seronok? Kenapa?
Boleh jumpa kawan-kawan.
Nak naik darjah berapa ni?
6.
Naik darjah 6 dah? So darjah 5 banyak cuti ni macam mana? Ada buat banyak ulang gaji tak kat rumah?
Sikit-sikit lah. Boleh lah.
Sikit lah.
Tahun lepas banyak baju tak guna sebab sekolah banyak tak pergi sekolah kan. So tahun ni kita memang ke arah nak jimat lah. So kita cari tempat yang boleh orang kata worth it lah untuk kita. So saya rasa tempat ni sesuai lah. So saya beli dengan tak berapa banyak lah baju yang saya boleh beli untuk anak saya.
Anak ni rumah aku memang besar sebab kita tak tahu dia muat tak muat baju tu. Kita kena datang, kena fitting jugalah. Otherwise nanti kan kena patah balik kan. Boleh je kita try beli online tapi soalnya online tak betul. Size tu kata macam L tapi sebenarnya XL apa kan. Tu yang better kita bawa anak sendirilah. Tapi kita ikut SOP lah. Sebab kita risau juga yang kalau berjangkit kepada anak kan. Itu kan anak yang kecil pun saya tinggal kat rumah tu.
Some shops were also seen encouraging customers to buy online with discounts of up to 10% offered.
Dua-dua pun ada. Customer sekarang dua-dua pun ada. Dulu dia mau prefer datang kedai dan pada sekarang ada statistik customer dia pun faham. Ada yang kita pun ada provide untuk customer bila dia beli dekat online atau shopping depan outlet kita ada bagi tempoh masa yang extend panjang untuk dia buat pertukaran.
The number of flood victims in Johor increased to 1,780 people from 390 families in 5 districts as of 7 p.m. Saturday. Johor Health and Environment Committee Chairman R. Vidyanathan said the victims have been relocated to 28 temporary evacuation centres statewide. The 5 districts hit by floods are Kluang, Kota Tinggi, Johor Bahru, Kulai and Batu Pahat. He said there was a drastic increase in the number of temporary evacuation centres in Kluang as the number increased from 1 centre at 5 p.m. to 12 centres by nightfall. He said there were 698 victims from 206 families evacuated in Kluang as compared to the 23 victims from 7 families recorded in the same district in the evening. Non-stop heavy rain since early Friday led to many low-lying areas being hit by floods. Some major rivers in the state have also overflowed their banks. One of the worst affected areas was Skudai, when more than 200 houses in Kampung Jaya Sepakat and Kampung Laut were inundated. Meanwhile, the Malaysian Meteorological Department, Met Malaysia, issued a danger or red level weather warning for several areas in Johor and Pahang. The talent pool for the local Islamic financing sector in the country needs to be expanded and nurtured to grow in line with the industry's innovative measures. Chief Executive Officer of the Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, CIIF, Dr. Azura Othman, said with the digitalization of Islamic financing, there is a need for talents to contribute in order to make a global impact. According to Dr. Azura, expanding the talent pool was just one of the 3 changes the Islamic financing industry needs to undergo.
Islamic financial system is now moving into technology. So Islamic fintech has to move together. And secondly, there need to be more collaboration with other Islamic financial markets so that Islamic finance globally can have a significant impact in the whole financial system globally.
Meanwhile, commenting on the recent issue of imported meat with fake halal certification, she said confidence in the halal industry will return once the certification process is improved.
I think there's certain issues recently regarding the authenticity of halal certification. I'm sure that in a way will impact in terms of the market perception of the certification by the halal authority. But however, I'm sure as an underlying concept of halal is you need to be transparent in terms of whatever that you do. So I think once certain processes are enhanced, and I'm sure that confidence can be brought back.
Dr. Azura was speaking to Money Matters on TV3 earlier on Saturday. The number of positive COVID-19 cases is expected to spike even further. Health Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Adam Babar said this is due to active tracing measures being conducted nationwide by health authorities. This also includes the compulsory screening of over 800,000 foreign workers in the Federal Territories, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Pulau Pinang and Sabah, which started on Friday. According to the minister, one of the factors that contributed to the high figures in Malaysia presently was the screening of migrant workers at construction sites and factories carried out since August.
Sehingga 31 bulan 12 sebelum masuk ke tarikh 1 bulan 1, kita telah saring 70,000 warga asing pekerja di sektor kilang dan juga di sektor tapak bina dan dia akan meningkat dengan adanya langkah wajib untuk pihak Madikan menyaring ataupun membuat ujian COVID-19 menggunakan RTK antigen.
He added that the ministry would immediately isolate those who tested positive and expedite contact tracing to prevent the virus from spreading. For cases involving foreign workers who do not have employers, the Immigration Enforcement Team is responsible for placing them in detention centres where the cost of the COVID-19 screenings would be borne by the government. Those who tested positive would then be repatriated to their country of origin. Datuk Sri Dr. Adam also said up to 10,000 beds would be added at the Quarantine and Treatment Centre at the Malaysia Agro Exposition Park Serdang or MAEPS to cater for the increase in COVID-19 patients. Malaysia recorded 2,295 new COVID-19 infections on Saturday, raising the daily tally to 117,373 cases. According to the Health Ministry, 9 fatalities were reported over the past 24 hours, bringing the death toll to 483. In a statement, Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said 9 of the new cases were imported, while the rest were local infections, with 22,398 cases currently active. The fatalities involved 6 men and 3 women, aged between 41 and 82. All locals. The number of recovered cases is 3,321, while total number of those discharged has risen to 94,492 individuals, or 80.5% of the overall COVID-19 cases in the country. 125 COVID-19 patients are in intensive care, with 51 requiring breathing assistance. Selangor again registered the highest number of new cases at 638, with 77.7% or 496 infections from active clusters and close contact screening conducted by the ministry. This was followed by Johor with 580 cases, Pulau Pinang with 288, Sabah with 259, Kuala Lumpur with 156 and Negeri Sembilan with 131, while the rest of the country reported cases in single or double-digit figures, except for Perlis with 0 new infection. 9 new clusters have emerged in the country, with the largest being the Harom cluster in Johor Bahru with 206 positive cases. Also, the Tapak Bina Casuarina cluster in the Selangor districts of Sepang and Petaling with 53 cases, as well as the Batu Lapan cluster in Tambunan, Ranau and Kota Belud, all in Sabah with 52 cases. To date, 229 clusters are still active. Triso ferry tragedy. Vehicle lost control before plunging into river. This and more from the local front after the break. The four-wheel drive that fell into Sungai Batang Lupar at the Triso ferry point was believed to have lost control before sliding into the river. The tragedy claimed 9 lives, including that of an infant who was in the vehicle. Sri Aman District Police Chief DSP Bingkok John said the Ford Ranger was on its way from Kapit heading towards Kuching through Jalan Beladin, Meludam. DSP Bingkok said the 9 victims who were in the vehicle were trapped as soon as it fell into the river. He added that the cause of death of all 9 victims is drowning. People nearby at the ferry point who witnessed the incident managed to tie the vehicle with a chain before it sank further. This allowed voluntary rescuers to remove the bodies of victims already unconscious from the vehicle. The full identities of the victims have also been revealed, with the youngest being a 4-month-old baby. It is understood that all the victims were related and were on the way to send one of them to a Tahfiz centre in Kuching. All the bodies have been brought to the Sri Aman Hospital for post-mortem. The Sri Aman Traffic Investigation and Enforcement Department is still investigating the incident. 6 of the victims from the same family were buried together at Kampung Hulu Muslim Cemetery in Simanggang, Sarawak. The bodies were brought to the Bandar Sri Aman Mosque for prayers earlier on Saturday and finally buried at 5 p.m. Siti Aisyah Abdullah was laid to rest with her children Muhammad Ahmad, Nur Shuhada Muhammad Hamzah, Khairunisa, Muhammad Aiman and Muhammad Mustaqim. The bodies of the other victims, Siti Aisyah, Lorna Ting and her 2 sons, Alvin Pang and Wallace Pang, were sent to Cebu for burial. Meanwhile, the state government has ordered for strong guardrails to be installed at all ferry crossings in the state to prevent similar tragedies. Deputy Chief Minister 2, Tan Sri Dr. James Jemut Masing, said that the State Public Works Department, PWD, has been instructed to start erecting the guardrails immediately. Masing, who is also Sarawak's Infrastructure Development and Ports Minister, said with the strong guardrails, nothing can fall off from the ferry boarding and alighting point. He said the car fell from the ferry landing point and not from the ferry as what some people had thought. The minister was speaking to the media after visiting the Triso ferry point. Masing said the tragedy served as a grim reminder of the need to strictly follow the standard operating procedures SOP when using such facilities. According to the SOP, all car occupants except the driver must disembark from their vehicle before it is driven through the landing ramp into the ferry. The passengers are only allowed to board the vehicle after it has exited the ferry at the other point of landing. He also extended his condolences to the families of the victims on behalf of the state government. The base jumping training session held in Putrajaya on Friday had received permission from the manager of the building concerned and the Putrajaya Corporation, PPJ, as the organizer and local authority. Its Corporate Communications Division Director, Tengku Aina Tengku Ismail Shah, said apart from that, the Special Malaysian Assistance and Rescue Team, or SMART, was also informed about the session and its personnel were also deployed to be on standby at the scene. In a statement on Saturday, she also said that the training had taken into account all safety aspects and the weather, including placing wind direction indicators on the building and landing area. Tengku Aina added that the PPJ also extended its deepest condolences to the victim's family. In the 5:35 p.m. incident on Friday, 49-year-old Azwan Taharudin died while performing a base jump trial at the Women, Family and Community Ministry building. He, along with 7 other jumpers, were training for a performance in conjunction with the 2021 Federal Territories Day. During the jump, Azwan was said to have lost control of his parachute and hit the windows of the building several times before falling off. Still to come on Nightline, Thailand mouths tougher curbs amid fears of second COVID-19 wave. Don't go away. Welcome back. In neighbouring Thailand, local health authorities on Saturday recommended tougher restrictions on businesses and people's movement in 28 provinces, including the capital Bangkok, as the number of new coronavirus cases is seeing an upward trend. The measures, which need final approval from Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, include suspending some businesses and crowded activities that pose infection risks to the public, while recommending people in these provinces work from home and avoid unnecessary travel out of their area. The new measures are expected to come into effect on Monday and could be implemented until the end of January. Many cases of the country's second wave are linked to a seafood market cluster among migrant workers in Samut Sakhon province south of Bangkok. Another cluster is linked to illegal gambling dens in eastern Thailand, both of which started in mid-December. Local authorities in Bangkok had earlier ordered schools to close down for 2 weeks and temporary closure of daycare centres, gyms, bars and massage centres. Thailand on Saturday confirmed 216 new COVID-19 infections and 1 new death. The country has recorded a total of 7,379 COVID-19 cases and 64 deaths since the outbreak started last January. India has approved the COVID-19 vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University, paving way for a huge immunization campaign in the world's second most populous country. Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar told reporters on Saturday the vaccine had been approved on Friday, adding that at least 3 more vaccines were waiting in line to be approved. The AstraZeneca vaccine is the first COVID-19 vaccine to be approved for emergency use by India, which has the highest number of infections after the United States. A government panel on Friday recommended the emergency use of the AstraZeneca shot, and the first injections could be given in the coming week upon the approval of India's Drugs Control Authority. India has set an ambitious target of inoculating 300 million people of its 1.3 billion people by mid-2021. The country, meanwhile, staged nationwide drills on Saturday to start one of the world's biggest coronavirus vaccination programs. India has so far reported more than 10 million COVID-19 cases, though its rate of infection has come down significantly from a mid-September peak. Elsewhere, Australia's most populous state of New South Wales made masks compulsory and imposed new restrictions as 7 new cases of community transmission were reported. New South Wales, which has close to 200 active COVID-19 cases, will levy a $200 Australian fine for flouting the new rule that comes into effect from midnight Saturday. In addition to that, the state's Premier Gladys Berejiklian banned dancing and singing at nightclubs while restricting numbers at gym classes, weddings, funerals and places of worship. In France, more than 2,500 people who attended an illegal New Year rave in Brittany began leaving the site before dawn on Saturday after 2 nights. Police failed to stop the underground event set up in 2 warehouses in south of Rennes on Thursday, which led to clashes with the police and sparked concerns it could spread coronavirus. Such mass gatherings are strictly prohibited across France to prevent the spread of COVID-19, and a nationwide 8 p.m. curfew, which was not lifted for New Year, applies across the country. Meanwhile, the United States marked its New Year on Friday by passing the extraordinary milestone of 20 million COVID-19 cases. The country has floundered in its efforts to quell the virus, which is spreading rapidly across the country and has already caused over 346,000 deaths, by far the highest national death toll. Nearly 2.8 million people in the US have already received their first jabs, but the figure fell well behind the 20 million inoculations that President Donald Trump's administration promised by the end of 2020. Now let's take a look at the highlights in Malaysia's main newspapers for Sunday, January 3rd. A report on the first phase of COVID-19 vaccinations to be rolled out next month for 1 million Malaysians, prioritising frontliners and other high-risk groups, takes the front page of both New Straits Times and Berita Harian. While Malaysia's best-selling Malay newspaper, Harian Metro, features an article of medical graduates may now have to wait for several years for housemanship placements while resorting to doing odd jobs. Don't forget to get your copies or subscribe to the online newspaper. Finishing touches are being put on a glitzy show at the Sydney Opera House as the venue prepared to host an opera crowd for the first time since March last year. The Merry Widow will open on Tuesday to masked audiences up to 75% capacity, in a sign of hope for the performing arts industry crippled by the COVID-19 pandemic. As we wrap the bulletin, we take a look at the preparation for the majestic grandeur. I'm Nurzi Patwancik. Thank you for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.